Hey guys, it's the Tominator, and wow, what an eventful night. Maybe it's just a December date, but it feels like Christmas came early this year with the 2020 Olympia. History was made this weekend, with Big Ramy becoming just the 16th man to hoist that elusive Sandow trophy. It was a long time coming. Okay, so just a heads up with these first few minutes, I'm gonna give some more general thoughts on how the 2020 Mr. Olympia went down here on Saturday night. After that, we'll take a quick peek at the scorecard. So if you came specifically for the pose-by-pose breakdown, feel free to skip to the timestamp below. Now, keep in mind that these are my raw initial impressions based on the webcast alone. I haven't gone back yet and checked the scorecards or examined any other photos, nor listened to anyone else's feedback apart from the live commentating crew. So take the following with a grain of salt, knowing that I could change my mind shortly. But Big Ramy brought it. He finally delivered, against all odds, and absolutely deserved the victory. It was still somewhat uncertain after prejudging, but he came back even better in the finals and sealed the deal. And to the legions of Ramy faithful out there who are gloating and scoffing at us skeptics, please realize that nobody with half a brain ever doubted that Ramy could pull it off. We just doubted that he would do it. There's a really crucial difference there, because objectively speaking, his contest history thus far did not indicate that an Olympia title was imminent. Not only that, but let's be real here, his Egyptian heritage and subpar English skills did not bode well as far as the politics are concerned. It's been almost 40 years since a non-American, or Brit, won the Olympia. Last time it happened was with the Lion of Lebanon, Samir Banu, back in '83. So I was genuinely relieved when they announced Ramy's name in first, because they put the politics aside and made the right call. As for Phil, what can you say? It was disappointing, man. I thought he came out strong and with a spring in his step during the individual routines. And for anyone who didn't notice, he actually tried to recreate his 2011 posing routine when he won the first time, even using the same songs. I still got chills when he hit the back double to that Jay-Z and Kanye track. But alas, this isn't 2011. That was 9 years ago. Hard to believe, but time flies. But yeah, I thought he looked tighter when he first came out. He was a little fuller and his body seemed to be coming alive more, particularly in the quads and hamstrings. But unfortunately, it was all downhill from there. He faded badly in the comparison round and looked tired and worn out. I imagine he didn't sleep very well on Friday night, knowing that it was likely another uphill battle. But that's no excuse. The midsection looked awful. It was worse than in prejudging, probably because he needed to carb up and fill out, and that took its toll. As for Brandon Curry, I think he was more or less the same. Maybe he filled out a little too. I need to go back and scrutinize. But I was perhaps too harsh on the guy in my prejudging critique. I honestly do believe he made some improvements over last year and was very possibly at his all-time best. He looked drier for one, and it appeared he made some gains upstairs. The issue is, he didn't seem to bring up his legs very much, if at all, compared to 2019, so the imbalance between the upper and lower body was arguably even worse. So the legs, particularly the hamstrings and the calves, remain his biggest weakness. But I guess the judges figured that was more forgivable than Phil's bloated stomach, and fair enough. Personally, I would have still had Phil in second, but hey, it doesn't really matter much now, does it? And Hadi Choopan, what a stud. The guy gets his visa last minute, flies in just a couple days before the show, and was still making a serious charge. He seemed to be getting stronger and stronger as they went along. By the end, he was even making a solid case for that silver medal. But unfortunately, he just had too much ground to cover from prejudging, where I had him firmly in fourth. I'm curious to view the official scorecards, though, and see if any of the judges had him third or second in the finals, because he definitely continued to get better and was holding his own next to Big Ramy, despite getting dwarfed. Alright, I could go on, but I think that's enough preamble. Let's check out the scorecard, and then we'll get into the comparisons. Okay, so here's the official scorecard for the Men's Open. And I've gone ahead and highlighted the names of the top 4 call-out. And yeah, as you can see, it was still very much up in the air after prejudging. Ramy held a lead, but it wasn't a big one. 8-11, just 3 points separating him and Phil Heath. And Curry was close behind in third with 13, while Hattie was a distant fourth. In fact, some of the judges even had William Bonac in fourth, so Hattie Chupan was never really challenging the top three on Friday. But then boy, oh boy, look what happened on Saturday. Hattie jumped all the way up into second. I suspected he might have moved up, but didn't think it would be unanimous. That score of 10 means every judge's vote, or at least the ones that were counted, had Hattie in second in the finals. I knew he improved, but that's crazy. Phil, unfortunately, represented the flip side of the coin. He faded big time and dropped from second to fourth, just like that. I think the gut issue is what allowed Brandon to pull ahead, because he overtook Phil in the finals. So yeah, I find these results both fascinating and vindicating. I'm glad that the judges were also evidently conflicted after prejudging, because I was having one hell of a time calling it there. And I definitely agree that Phil was beating Brandon at that point, if only barely. It's really cool how quickly Hattie turned it around too. Imagine if he had had a couple weeks to train in the States and get acclimatized better. Who's to say he couldn't have convincingly seized that runner-up spot if only he had a bit more time? But the story of the weekend was, of course, Big Ramy. He held the lead from start to finish, and as I suspected, only distanced himself from the pack further in the finals, where he was at least 2 to 3% sharper than in prejudging. Okay, but anyway, let's get to the meat and potatoes already and start breaking down these mandatories. And we're going to use the video footage this time around because the lighting was brighter for the finals, and I think we can work with it. So in this front double by, yeah, this is the problem with video when they zoom in too much and we don't get a full view of the lineup. But you know what? This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. The pose is being decided right here because it's between Ramy and Brandon. And oof, I like them both. Brandon is easily beating him upstairs, easily. That outline is just absolutely world class. But downstairs, it's like an amateur versus a pro. Ramy obliterates him. Overall, I think Brandon does just enough to eke it out, and I don't think he's going to win too many more, so we might as well just go ahead and give it to him. Ramy will have plenty of time to shine. But look at Hattie here. He's crushing it. The conditioning is on point. He was hard. Look at the quads. Look at the definition through the torso. If only his triceps were a little longer, or even if his forearms were larger, that would help close the gap between them and his biceps. Either one of those things would make a world of difference, but even so, he's giving Brandon a run for his money. And here's one with Phil, and I still believe he's the most balanced of the lot. Out of all these guys, he's the only one whose calves match his thighs, and he has the best triceps and forearms. But he looks a little small through the lats compared to the others. He'd need to have at least Hattie-level conditioning to challenge in this shot, and he doesn't have that. Brandon actually looks worse the more you zoom out, but to be fair, his outline is getting kind of obscured by the busy background, so that's distracting from his greatest strength, which is his silhouette. I tell you what, I'm very tempted to give it to Hattie Chupan right now. Despite the subpar calves and tries, he looks great everywhere else, and is definitely the sharpest from the front. But the lat spread goes to Ramy all day. He is just too immense in this shot. Brandon's very close up top, but the lower body looks even weaker than before, so Hattie easily overtakes him here. These three are all super wide and look ready to take flight with those wings. Phil, on the other hand, can't compete. He's not even that bad through the lats. It's the narrow shoulders and round chest that really throw it off. And I actually like how Ramy hits it in two different ways here. I saw some people complaining about how he was flexing his abs, and that does detract a little from the lat flare. But I think it's okay because Ramy has width to spare, and this actually makes him look denser through the chest. It's not a bad look at all. So this one's pretty easy to call. It's Ramy, then Hattie, then Brandon, then Phil. Side chest. Yeah, Ramy is too much here. The size, the thickness, all those deep lines running through his leg. Nobody else is even close now. He's just dominating. Phil looks good through the arms, shoulder, and lower body, but his chest is too narrow, and his abs look bulky and bloated. Brandon looks massive and full, but his separation is too shallow, and once again, he can't hope to hang with Ramy downstairs. Yeah, here we see Phil's stomach protruding. It's not terrible because he is keeping it flexed hard, but the chest isn't good enough from this angle to compensate for that flaw. Ramy, however, was suffering no such issues. He looks polished like a bronze statue here. Check out that rear delt and trap just jumping off him. Okay, we didn't get a good look at Hattie, but I don't think he'd be beating anyone here. I still give Phil a slight edge over Brandon because Curry just looks way too smooth to my eyes and still a little top heavy. But Ramy beats them both fairly easily. In the back double, let's see if Phil can still hold on. This has been his bread and butter for the past decade. And here we go. Yeah, you can see that compared to Heath, Ramy looks like he's missing half his back. That was his biggest weak point in this contest, and I'm not sure if there's a whole lot he can do to improve there, because that's just the way his lats insert. But even still, he's making a case for himself. He's way bigger and wider, and even looks more polished, particularly through the glutes and traps. Phil's still got the better back, but the only area he looks sharper is in the arms with that split between the tris and brachialis. Maybe a bit more separation in the delts too. And Brandon Curry is doing damage. Look at his shoulders, they're matching big Ramy's, and his front delts are actually even bigger. That's crazy. And the way his lats just seem to explode out of that tiny waist reminds me of a modern day Lee Haney. It's just too bad his lower body doesn't measure up. As for Hattie, he looks dramatically improved from the prejudging here. His back is arguably showing more detail than anyone's right now, especially down the center. I still think those triceps and forearms let him down a bit, but he's a legit contender now. His shoulders do look a bit suspicious though. They're positively enormous, but lacking in separation, and that medial head is bulging out in a weird looking manner. Overall, I still gotta give it to Phil, but only by a hair. His legs look really thick from the rear, and he's the only one with good calves, but he's not nearly as sharp as he used to be, and that's costing him dearly. After that, it's a total toss-up. I'd need to see some true HD pictures to make a definitive call, but let's tentatively go with Ramy, then Brandon, and then Hattie. They're all extremely close though. The rear lat spread I think goes to big Ramy, and I only say I think because Hattie is coming on strong now. I think Chupan's back actually looks better in this pose. Not as much raw size, but he has a better V-taper and also has more defined lower traps and lats. Brandon's lower body is too weak and he's actually getting overshadowed through the back here, standing between these two. Phil looks marginally better here than in the prejudging, but it's not enough, especially when both Big Ramy and Hattie improved. So yeah, on second thought, I'd actually give this one to Hattie, with Ramy in second, Phil in third, and then Brandon bringing up the rear. But just like the back double, there are no real losers here. All of them look good. The side tricep is where I felt Phil really started to slip, but we'll catch that in a moment. As far as this comparison between Ramy and Curry, it's close enough upstairs that Ramy wins on lower body alone. Curry's definitely more aesthetic, but that doesn't count for much as far as judging these things goes. And yeah, you can note right here that Phil is not looking nearly as impressive in the side try as he did the night before. The midsection is more distended, and he isn't locking out the tricep. Yesterday we were seeing all sorts of feathering, but the way he's hitting it now doesn't bring that out. Conversely, Ramy's execution is much better, so he's overtaking the gift in it now, in spite of the weaker triceps. Hattie's actually the most polished looking of the lot. That midsection is money, and I'd say he's besting everyone with the exception of Big Ramy. The ab and thigh once again has to go to either Ramy or Hattie. Hattie's clearly sharper and winning when it comes to the namesake body parts, but I prefer Ramy through the lats and chest, and he's still overwhelming with all that mass. Plus he's got the better outline, so yeah, I think that's enough. Hattie's a close second, though, with Brandon third and Phil obviously last. That vacuum from Chupan, though, is very impressive, especially in the open class on a guy packing that much muscle. And that's a feat right there. I could see that scoring him some bonus points. And same with this twisting variation, showcasing all that detail through the obliques. This is a better look for Brandon, too. Finally, in the most muscular, Ramy is just eclipsing Heath here in the hands-on hip. Phil never should have tried to match him in this shot. He doesn't have the width, and it puts the abs on full display, exposing his gut. This was a horrible posing decision. I'm not sure what he was thinking there. He's definitely better off with the hands clasped, drawing more attention to those massive arms and away from the midsection. I also like this chicken wing variation, or whatever you want to call it, from Big Ramy. Not as good as the first shot, but it adds a bit of artistic flair. I actually like Curry more than Phil now here in this pose, solely because the midsection is getting away from him. As for Hattie, he doesn't have the arms for this shot, frankly. You need thick guns to make it work. This reminds me of Kai Green in The Most Muscular, where his arms often ended up looking undesirably thin and stringy. In the crab, though, Hattie can be competitive, but I want to freeze it here first to show this rematch between Phil and Brandon, which I think the 2019 Mr. O is winning decisively now. Hattie looks pretty crazy, though, too. Check out those traps and delts. He didn't flex his chest fully, though. Usually there'd be a ton of striations there with him, and that would have really tied it all together, so he messed up a bit this time. For what it's worth, I think Curry in the crab was arguably the best pose in this whole sequence, but overall, Ramy takes the most muscular because he's more complete than Brandon and nailed that first hands-on hip. Plus, I mean, obviously the guy's the most muscular dude in the frame, so that has to count for something in a pose like this. Okay guys, so that's gonna do it for this one. I think after watching this, the true winner could no longer be questioned. The only remaining doubt about the outcome was, would they let a non-Westerner who isn't fluent in English claim bodybuilding's ultimate prize? Well, I'm happy to say that they did indeed, and justice was served. I don't think the IFBB from 10 or 20 years ago would have allowed that, but they seem to be listening to the fans now and are more in tune with us than ever. So this is an encouraging step in the right direction. Anyway, I know this one was kind of long, so I appreciate it if you watched all the way till the end. If you like this type of video, please drop a like and subscribe for more of the same. That's really the staple of this channel, doing these in-depth breakdowns. And stay tuned because I'll also be doing reviews of the 212 finals plus Classic Physique. But until then, this has been the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.